Hey, hello everybody. Welcome to the Triangle Homeschool Resource Center page. My name is Lena Yaisley, and I'm the owner and founder of the Triangle Homeschool Resource Center. And I wanted to take a minute today to address some questions that I've been seeing in groups, and thank you to those who posted questions, responded in a couple of the places that I posted, and sent me questions via PM. I'll be sure to get to those. We're going to talk about standardized testing today. Seen a lot of questions, especially very recently as we're coming up on spring semester, and especially from those who are new to homeschooling. This is your first year. You may have some questions about this annual standardized test that's required by the state of North Carolina. So first of all, if you are joining me from outside of North Carolina, this may not apply to you. Homeschooling is governed by state by state in the United States, so you have to check with your state laws to see if you are required to do standardized testing. So here in North Carolina, we are required to do that once per school year. Now your first test is required to be done within 12 months of opening your homeschool. So if you're one of the families that opened your homeschool in, say, September, October, November, as your school district changed its plans and what have you, then you are not required to do the standardized test until next fall sometime, September, October, November, approaching the first anniversary of your opening your homeschool. Okay, so that would be the first time you're required to test. After that, you're required to test once per school year after. So let's say you test in October. It's good practice to be doing it once per calendar year, but really once per school year. And a school year in North Carolina is defined regardless of when you start a new grade's worth of work or when you end. That doesn't matter. School year in North Carolina is defined as July 1st to June 30th. So sometime in that period the following year, then you do your next test and then the next test. So you can adjust for your school year if you want to have an end of school year test or a beginning of the school year test. After that first one is done and under your belt, you can adjust the timing to kind of help, mark the school year progress, or basically to get out of that test what you want to get out of it. Okay, so if you are joining me and this is your first time homeschooling, if you have any questions about standardized testing, go ahead and comment, and I'll be checking in to see if I can answer any of your questions while I am live here. So one of the big questions last year for the 2019-2020 school year, the state waived the annual testing requirement. So schools that were required to test before June 30th of 2020 did not have to do a standardized test for that school year. So, however, if you opened your school last February or April, so in April of 2020, you wouldn't have been completing a test for that school year anyway. You were required to complete one before this March or this April. So a lot of folks that started homeschooling last spring, due to stuff going on in the schools due to COVID and what have you, then your annual testing date is coming up. So I wanted to be sure to give you some helpful hints and kind of help you navigate that as you approach your first year of testing. Okay, so it is not waived yet for the 2020-2021 school year. I don't see that happening. I have no idea really, but so far we haven't heard anything about testing being waived for this year. So plan on completing it, especially if you opened your homeschool last February, March, April. Then, like I said, your testing date is coming up. So be sure to be prepared for that. So that's the first thing about when to test. Okay, so the first test you need to do is before the first anniversary of opening your homeschool. A lot of people say, my child is 7, they're in first grade, looking for the easiest, least expensive test to do. I recommend the California Achievement Test, also known as the CAAT. It can be done completely online. Untimed, it's $20 to $25, $15 if you have a coupon. I have a couple of coupon codes, so if you can't find one, definitely drop me a message and I will help you get a coupon code for that. But the thing about California Achievement Test, if you get it from academicexcellence.com, which is a site I would recommend, then you're to be choosing the test for the grade the student is going into next year. So even though you're testing in February or March, you can choose the second grade test. They don't have a first grade test. So if you have a first grader who is 7, you need to be testing them in March or April, you can choose the second grade test. Now, I know that's going to stress some parents out because you think, oh my gosh, my child's not going to be ready for second grade. We've lost time this year, or, I didn't get as much done as I planned. It's okay. Testing here is just kind of a box we have to check. You can get out of testing what you need to get out of it. If it's something where you feel like you need to know where your child is in terms of, what they are learning about, then, by all means use it for that. But nobody is going to check on your homeschool and tell you your child failed, or you failed, or you can't homeschool anymore, or anything like that based on standardized testing, okay? So don't let it stress you out. Don't let it stress your student out. This is not like EOGs. Nobody's funding, nobody's promotion, nothing. In terms of grade promotion, you can move your child to the next grade whenever you feel they're ready. It has nothing to do with the standardized test. It's really just a benchmark. In the event that you should ever get a letter for inspection of your homeschool records, you just have to show that you've done it. They're not judging the scores. They're not, looking at that. So that's, just something to kind of just check the box, especially if, this homeschooling thing isn't long term for you. Don't stress about it. You don't need to teach to the test. Absolutely do not teach to the test. Don't worry about what if we don't finish our curriculum in time for the test. That's not the goal. Okay, that's not the goal here. The testing is just a box to check. Some principals, if you're going back into the school system, it's up to the principal to do placements, and maybe they would ask for standardized test scores or results or what have you. But I would recommend pushing back a little bit, asking for them to do a placement exam from the school. Because the standardized tests, we know the CAAT is not like what they use in the schools anyway. So if they're trying to compare how your child did on a CAAT to where their kids are in terms of classroom placement, it's not a great comparison anyway. So it might not be a good fit. So that's something to keep in mind when it comes to standardized testing. There are other options available. If you need a little bit more help, I recommend looking for a Woodcock Johnson test. You can definitely message me. I have some testers that I can recommend depending on where you're located. It is more expensive. It's about $100. It's off season right now, so maybe you could get a little bit of a discount. Some testers do kind of lower their rates to keep students coming through at this time of year, but we have a lot of people needing to test it at this time of year. So that might not be the case this year, but I do have people I can recommend, and it is, if you want the help, if you want the personalized recommendations, if you want curriculum and placement information, if you're planning to continue this homeschooling thing, if you have any suspicion of any sort of learning difficulty or anything like that, then I definitely recommend a Woodcock Johnson test. It is worth its weight in gold. So $100 for the information you get out from a good tester is so worth it. So you'll save money on curriculum, you'll save frustration and stress. So if it's something you can invest in, want to invest in, then that is definitely a good option. So that's another test that you can do. The other thing that I wanted to touch on this year is something maybe for the more experienced homeschoolers, or maybe if you're starting out and you have a student in high school, you didn't know about this, but the SAT and ACT do not typically count for our standardized testing in North Carolina because of the spelling requirement. So on the standard SAT, they're not really testing for spelling. Or the standard ACT either. So if you have a high school student taking the SAT or the ACT, unless they're taking the written essay portion where they do check spelling, then it doesn't count. It doesn't, I shouldn't say it doesn't count. It doesn't satisfy the requirement for annual standardized testing for your homeschool. Okay, so you may want an SAT score. It's going to go to, colleges and what have you, but it's not going to check the box for your legal requirement for standardized testing unless they do the essay portion. Now, SAT is doing away with the essay portion. So that's something to plan ahead for. Know that your high school student will have to do a CAAT, which for a high school student who took the SAT, the CAAT should be a breeze. So no big deal. It's going to cost you an extra $20, but it should be super easy for your high school student to also kind of check that box and get that done. So once the essay is gone from the SAT, then that definitely does not meet the requirement, at least as far as the guidance we have from DMPE right now. So from what I understand, it's not necessarily written in stone anywhere. It may change with leadership or administration of DMPE, so it doesn't hurt to reach out. I am not a lawyer, I'm not a state employee, I'm not any sort of official, I'm just another homeschool mom trying to pass on the information as I get it so that I can keep you informed and help make your journey easier. So that is all I had for testing. I think I covered all of the questions that came to me ahead of time. I hope that helps. I just, I see a lot of stress around the standardized testing this time of year, especially for those of you who kind of joined our homeschool community last spring. You have that, deadline kind of coming up, and you're not turning this into anybody, by the way. So once you do that standardized test, you print the certificate of completion or the score report or what have you, and you keep that in your records, whether that's an electronic record, a folder on your computer, whether it's an email. Then those are the things that you want to keep on hand. That's your record. I just want to double check for comments here. So I think that is it for questions. Yeah. So I just don't want folks to stress out about the standardized testing here in North Carolina. It's a box to check. So if you have to spend money on something for your homeschool, make it worth it, right? So if it matters to you, if you can get something out of it, then by all means, but don't put too much emphasis on it. Don't put too much weight on it. You are with your student every day. You are watching them learn. You're watching them struggle. You know better where they are than any standardized test can measure. And that should be, what you're using daily, sorry about that, daily to kind of figure out, where you need to go next in your homeschool. If you ever need any help with that, with planning your curriculum, picking things for next year, do reach out. I would love to help you out. And otherwise, thanks so much for joining me. If you're seeing this on the replay, then be sure to subscribe and hit like so that you get notifications of our future videos. So, all right, thanks everybody. I hope everybody has a great rest of the week and weekend as we head into February. Enjoy.